Hello YouTube, this is Brian Essick here from howtoautomotive.com. Today I'm going to show you how to do a radiator and thermostat on a 2005 Honda Odyssey with a 3.5 liter engine. To start, we're going to remove the upper covers here, and we're going to remove the radiator cap. So we'll lift the car up, or if you don't have a lift, we have to go underneath and remove the lower engine covers or splash shields. The covers are just held on by these little clips. You can either use a screwdriver and pop the clips up, or I have a special tool that pops the clips off, and it works like this. You just squeeze it in there and pull, and then the whole clip itself will come out, and then it's free. After removing 10 of those clips, this is what it looks like after the covers are off. Now the grill will also be loose too. It'll come off. And now you've got plenty of access to the radiator. So now I'm going to lift it up and take off the lower shields and start draining the coolant. Now that I got the lower shields off, on the right hand side, or the passenger side of the radiator, there's a little drain plug. It's called a petcock. You just unscrew it and the coolant will drain out. So now the coolant's draining, I'm going to work on at the same time. We're going to remove the transmission cooler lines, and I'll get a flashlight and light that up so you can see, and also remove the lower hose. Okay, the transmission cooler lines are on the bottom of the tank. So there's one on the right hand side of the tank and one on the left hand side of the tank, just to the right of the lower radiator hose. And you'll remove the squeeze clamps. You'll squeeze these little clamps and slide them up like I did here, and do the same here. And next I will, so to get the hoses off, it takes a little bit of persuasion. I had to break them free with a little pair of pliers to kind of give them a twisting motion left and right to break the seal off of them. And then I have a pair of panel popping tools that I got from one of the tool trucks, and so you would slide it in between the hose and it pries it off. And then one of the other things I do is I have a pair of these hose clamps, and you crimp the hose off to reduce the ton of transmission fluid pouring out. And also it saves the customer a little money when you retop it off. You don't have to use that much, or yourself a little bit of money. So the next step will be to remove the lower radiator hose, and then we'll lower the car back down. So the lower hose is held on with the same squeeze clamps. You just squeeze it with a pair of pliers and slide it back, and then you can pry the hose off the lower neck of the radiator. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to remove bolts and brackets. There's 2 of them on each side, or 4 of them on each side actually. One, you'll remove the 10mm bolt. Just hold this on. You can see where I'm working at in the headlights here. So you pull that bracket off, and then that's for the condenser, and then the radiator will have a bracket too. You take the bolt out, the 10mm bolt to here, and you pull this bracket off. So after you do that, the radiator and condenser are free, and they have plenty of movement. So I like to do that so I can pull things back and then get access to like the upper hose clamp. So I'm going to take that off next. Okay, after you get the upper radiator hose off, it'll actually come back even further. Now you can get to the electrical connectors for the fans here and here, so I'll take those off. So after you unplug the electrical fan, it's also clipped to the fan housing with this little clip. You got to pry it up with like a pop tool or a screwdriver or something, whatever your weapon of choice. Pop that out, and then on the same side, same thing on the other side, it's held in too. It's there and there, so I got those removed. All right, so the next step I did was remove the hood latch remover. But before I did that, I made a couple whiteout marks on it in a couple spots, because this is adjustable up or down, so I didn't want to mess with the adjustment since it was perfect already. So I made a few marks, and also you can see the dirt stain around where it used to be. So when we bolt it back up, we're pretty much just going to bolt it back in the exact same spot, and we should be okay. And also one other thing is after unbolted, there's an electrical connector that mounts underneath. You have to unplug it too. So once you get that all unplugged and unbolted and flip it out of the way, now the radiator is ready to be lifted out. And I lifted out with the fans and everything attached to it, since we've already unhooked everything from below. Okay, as I was lifting it out, I discovered that the transmission cooler lines have these two little brackets, one there and one right over here, with these 10mm bolts on it that held the transmission cooler line to the radiator. So before we actually lift it out of the car, we need to take those two pins off, and then that'll free the transmission cooler lines completely from the radiator. So you can see I took the whole fan and radiator assembly out as one piece. And this is what the hole looks like here in the radiator in the car. You see my clamp tools and stuff. Alright, so the next step is to transfer all the fans, and on the bottom of the radiator there's rubber grommets here. And here we're going to transfer all those parts over to the new radiator, and then we'll put it back in. Okay, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to go ahead and tackle the thermostat now that the radiator's out, because if you look through here, there's a big gaping hole that you can stick your arms through and actually get to the thermostat faster and easier. So we'll start by just removing the upper engine cover. To remove the engine cover, all you have to do is turn this little plastic screw you see right here on the frame 90 degrees. So you turn 90 degrees, and then the cover is unlocked, latch it, and it pops out. And then you can remove the cover. So it comes out. So now you can see underneath the throttle body here is the thermostat. The lower hose goes to the thermostat. So now with the radiator out, we have a lot more light, and we can also get to it from different angles if we need to. But I'm also going to go ahead and remove the air boot from the air cleaner. I'll probably just take the whole top part of the air box off to give me access. Okay, after getting the air cleaner out of the way, let's see it. There's a bracket down there. It had two 12mm bolts on it. It goes right there. And what it does is it holds the wiring harness on. So you can probably unclip it from the bracket, but I like to, if I can remove a bolt, it's easier to remove a bolt than the clip, because clips like to break. The mounting clips like to break. So whenever I get a chance, if I can take a bolt out, I'll take a bolt out before I take a clip out. So anyways, with those out, this wiring harness now is free to move around, and I believe there's 4 bolts that hold the thermostat housing on. One's a bolt for the wiring, for the ground strap. You can kind of see it right there where the light's shining. And then 3 other bolts that hold the thermostat housing on its own. I'll remove those from this side with the extension going that way. If I get the flashlight in here. The extension going in through like that. And I'll remove the bolts, all the bolts, and the thermostat should come out. So after trying to maneuver around, I had a little tough time. So what I ended up doing was I ended up unplugging all the sensors, the EGR valve, the temp sensor, the throttle body, unplugged it all, and then I was able to pull the wire harness out of the way. And then so I removed the ground strap here. Now there's a bolt here, and I told you there was 3 bolts, but there's actually only 2 bolts holding the thermostat on. So there's one here and one caddy corner on the other side. So now with an extension and a ratchet, I should be able to get to those bolts, and I'll take those out right now. Okay, after removing the 2 bolts from the thermostat housing, I pulled the thermostat back, the housing back, the hose back, and you can see the thermostat in there now. Let's see if we can get it back spot. A little bright there. Okay, there's the thermostat. So now we're just going to pry that out, and it's only held in with a rubber gasket. So we'll replace the rubber gasket in the new thermostat. We'll put the thermostat housing back on, bolt those back up, and hook our electrical connector back up. So after getting the thermostat all the way out of the block, you can see that little shiny spot on the thermostat housing, the copper looking shiny spot right here. That's where the thermostat was sticking and dragging. So it's a good thing we replaced this. We just replaced it because I like to do that when I do radiators, do the thermostat too. It's a good idea to do both. So we're going back together now. And I got the thermostat back in its place. It has rubber mounts, gasket. So you just wipe out the certain areas and then stick the thermostat back in there. As you can see under the throttle body there's the new thermostat. So the next is to put the thermostat housing on and put the 2 bolts back in, bolt it back up. No silicone, nothing is needed. Just torque the bolts down and that's it. A tip for you when you put the bolt on the bottom of the thermostat is put a little piece of paper in the socket and then stuff the bolt in the socket, and then you can maneuver it around without knocking the bolt off or losing the bolt, and you can start your bolt. Okay, after bolting the thermostat housing back up, next is just reconnect all of our electrical connectors, put our air box back in, and that portion of the job will be done. And rebolt the bracket back down for the wiring harness too. Don't forget to put your bolts back in for that. So that's all back together. Now we're gonna turn our focus back to reinstalling the radiator. So I took the rubber grommets that were here on the bottom of the radiator and went ahead and put them back in the bottom of the core support of the car. Just easier that way. So now I slip the radiator back in. I'll slip these little pegs in those little rubber grommets. Okay, on the new radiator, I went ahead and transferred the fans over to the new radiator and the coolant bottle. And now it's ready to slip back into the core support. Okay, after slipping the radiator back in, what I do now is I hook my electrical connector back up for my fans and re-secure the little brackets for the wiring harness. And then after that, I hook up my upper radiator hose, and then I'll reattach the mounting brackets to go here and here. Okay, after you put the mounts on top, go ahead and lift the car back up and reinstall your transmission cooler line brackets, the 2 tins we took off, and the lower radiator hose. After hooking all that back up, we're going to put our splash shields back on, lower the car down for the last time. Okay, the next step is to remount after you hook up your hoses on the top and the electrical connectors. Is remount the brackets to hold the condenser and the radiator in place. Once they're bolted into place, then the next step would be to remove or to reinstall the engine, the hood latch. So we'll line back up our paint marks and we'll put our bolts in and plug in our electrical connector underneath. And then after that, we'll lift the car up, reinstall the lower radiator hose and transmission cooler lines and the splash shields. Okay, after reinstalling the latch, what I like to do is spray it off with a little brake cleaner to remove the whiteout marks that I put on there so they don't see that. And then the next step will be to fill this sucker up with coolant and double check it for leaks. And then after there's no leaks and we're all good, we put the engine covers back on the top cover here and take it for a test drive. And also make sure your fans run. So run it until the thermostat opens up and your engine cooling fans come on or run. That way you rule out any other problems or anything. So you don't want to go on a test drive and have it overheat on you. Okay, after filling up with coolant and double checking for leaks, make sure the fans run, and also don't forget to double check the transmission fluid because we do lose a little bit in the process of cleaning the radiator. That's all done and in good shape. I'd like to take this time to thank you for watching my videos, and encourage you to please subscribe and leave a comment if I can help you out in any other way. Thank you.